They want transparency, but if they hear some criticism, they can say that it doesn't truly reflect what's happening. And just because they've paid the entry fee, it should not be their right to complete a test. When I go into a dressage test, I'm suddenly not allowed to talk. Why is that the case? Yes, I'd like an answer to that too. A very warm welcome back to you. In advance of launching my podcast series this weekend, I wanted to quickly nip in with some additional FEI Sports Forum news, this time from the Horse and Hound, which was published today. Judges' alert buttons and optional double bridles proposed in dressage. A trial of making the double bridle optional up to CDI 3-star level, observing horses before they enter at A, that's a new one, and giving judges buttons to alert each other to issues are among proposals in dressage. What do they currently do? Kick each other under the table? But it'll nevertheless be a good thing that if one judge steps forward and alerts another, then they will potentially all agree that there is a problem. A session at the FEI Sports Forum reviewed the work of the FEI Dressage Strategic Action Planning Working Group formed this year, chaired by George Williams and including 6-time Olympian and trainer Kira Kirkland, German team coach Monica Theodorescu, and British medalist Gareth Hughes. And they've been tasked with reviewing the sport and developing a plan, which will be put to the FEI Dressage Technical Committee and coincide with the full dressage rules revision next year. That will be interesting, but it's good to know that they are preparing for it. FEI Director for Dressage, Ronan Murphy, gave an overview of the sport's position. We all know we've been under a very intense spotlight, he said, so it's good that they recognise it and are feeling the heat. It's important to highlight areas of criticism, the sentiment that the sport is not in a trustworthy place, and we've lost confidence. Areas under scrutiny are training methods, judging and scoring, and specific high-profile incidents, often including some top athletes. Well, that's a euphemism. But they exist for the membership, so they're hardly going to be outspoken about them. And there have been calls for much more decisive action to address the concerns. So yeah, I wonder if we're going to get that now. Focus areas were young horses that were competing in dressage. 8 focus areas are being prioritised by the working group, including judging, tack and equipment, horse health and well-being, and the warm-up area and stewards. And he presented a summary of suggestions in these areas gathered from stakeholder meetings to be considered. You can incidentally watch the 4-hour presentation from the FEI, and I'll put a link in the description below. In judging, these include a rideability score to reward good riding. Well, I just wonder how many riders will be benefiting from that. And making judges' comments public. A button for judges to alert one another when concerns arise over the competency of the combination and observing pairs before they enter at A, an area where horses can become tense before starting the test. Well, yes, they can already observe them, but do they take that into consideration, or will there be marks awarded? Other ideas included minimising horse stress and reducing noise such as clapping during tests, the trial period for giving riders a choice over use of double bridles up to and including CDI 3-star, Grand Prix level, standardising the noseband across Grand Prix classes regardless of choice of double or snaffle bridle, and cleaning foam from the horse's mouth before entering the arena or during the warm-up if requested by the FEI official. I wonder how that's going to work in practice. Toothbrushes, sponges, cloths. But it is a good thing. It just means that those who are tempted to have their horses foaming at the bit, perhaps they will refrain from that in the future. So this is hotting up. Many of these are to protect athletes because criticism sometimes doesn't truly reflect what is happening. And it's important to be completely transparent, said Mr. Murphy. Oh, so they want transparency, but if they hear some criticism, they can say that it doesn't truly reflect what's happening. Mr. Williams added that the group's discussions have been very varied and no conclusions have been made. Well, perhaps they haven't been talking for long enough or tasked to make those conclusions. That is the problem with working groups, is that they are there not to shoot the breeze, but to resolve issues. So they need to make sure they do that and in good time, and that they are productive with their time so that in the meantime horses don't suffer. Having criticised that the Charlotte Dujardin whistleblower spent a number of years sitting on evidence, well, they can't then say, oh, we're just having discussions, but we're not reaching conclusions. So they need to get a wriggle on. The members of the working group, except Gareth, who was unable to attend, took part in a panel discussion on topics including judging, public perception, training and stewarding, and on the topic of double bridles and potential for the suggested trial. Mr. Williams stressed that we are not making recommendations as a group. We each have our own opinions. Yeah, that's the problem with groups. Reaching a status quo or consensus on an issue is challenging. On the topic of higher marks, Ms. Theodorescu said we don't want to promote the snaffle to be used just for the purpose of getting higher marks, which could lead to other problems we don't want. Or we have to be careful implementing something that might look good on the outside, and we might get positive press for a moment. Careful about implementing something that might look good. So I think she's referring to using snaffle bridles for window dressing, which may create other issues. So yes, they do have to be sure that more abuse wouldn't occur with a snaffle bridle. In a press briefing, FEI Secretary General Sabrina Ibanez said it is hoped concrete proposals will be established by the FEI General Assembly in November. It's strange how all this keeps being pushed into the future. The European Dressage Championships take place in August, and when asked whether anything new could be implemented by then to improve the image of dressage, Ms. Ibanez said if there are any best practices that do not necessarily affect rules and regulations, these will be announced. Best practices that don't affect the rules. Okay, so changing rules is going to be in the 2026 diary. I hope by the end of this year, November, they'll be ready, decided and concluded to make decisions going forward, which is their role. And the headline, Ethics and Welfare in Focus at All Levels of Horse Sport. And stakeholders are making progress on an action plan to promote and enhance sport welfare. Some plans at last. An ethical training method is one that minimises equine welfare effects and maximises positive and results in self-carriage without physical force. Yes. This is the proposed FEI definition as work continues on the Welfare Strategy Action Plan announced last year, November. Training is one of 6 focus areas and was covered in a session on welfare at the 2025 FEI Sports Forum. Work is ongoing towards an ethical training framework to be delivered before the 2025 Assembly in November. The objective is to formulate a globally applicable framework, and our main goal is to define ethical training and its principles, but also to identify acceptable practices supported by science and expert consensus, which is super important, said Swedish researcher Malin Axel Nilsson, a member of the new FEI Equine Advisory Welfare Group. This group is overseeing the implementation of the plan and working with the FEI's ethical training methods expert consultative group. We have to collaborate and make our arguments understandable for all parties, said Dr. Axel Nilsson. Chair Jenny Hall gave an update on another focus area, fitness to compete. Workers included an expert forum in January, at which topics included equine physical and mental fitness before, during and after competition. Well, I haven't heard that being publicised. Travel and horse inspections. Dr. Hall said the forum found the inspections are fit for purpose, but although people can agree when a horse is not fit to compete, owing to lameness, a working group is being formed to develop guidance for assessing when a horse is not fit for competition based on its behaviour and mental state. Okay, so as the horse enters the arena at A, and they will all be observing carefully, then perhaps that's an opportunity to make observations with a view to eliminating the horses. So, yeah, you would hope that riders would feel less inclined to present these horses that are not fit for competing because of their behaviour or mental state. And just because they've paid the entry fee, it should not be their right to complete a test. The judges really should have no tolerance of horses that are displaying signs of discomfort, whether mental or physical, in competition or immediately before it. Work is ongoing on standardising trot-up surfaces and the equine prohibited substances list, and the equine prohibited substances list is under review to ensure it aligns with advancements in medicine. Yes, you'll remember in the last video, one of the news reports mentioned the use of sniffer dogs. Dr. Hall said this is ensuring that there is not a blanket no to things that could be beneficial to horse welfare, but making sure our response is nuanced enough to have benefits of modern techniques without being adverse for the horse. Yeah, well, what's wrong with rein tension measuring devices, which, if fitted, would not affect the horse at all? Then we can find out which riders have got hard hands and potentially causing discomfort to the horse. FEI Veterinary Director Goran Ackerstrom shared a research update and said the rollout of the protocol for inspection of oral lesions, announced at the 2024 General Assembly, is due either late 2025 or early 2026. Yeah, let's add a year to that. Again, don't criticise whistleblowers for sitting on evidence and then sitting on it yourselves. We learned that to make this successful for the sake of horses and for social licence, we need to involve riders, grooms and all stakeholders very closely. Well, they've been ready and waiting for some time now. He added that the focus will be on engaging riders and grooms, educating and data collection. Participation will be voluntary with very much a strong advisory focus. Oh, is this the yellow cards coming out again? And assessing welfare. Dr. Axel Nilsson said another area of the plan is developing a framework to assess and evaluate equine welfare. A project is ongoing to define how the 5 domains horse welfare model is relevant to each discipline in different formats and implemented in different ways. Well, all horses need their 5 freedoms, all animals, I should say. So that's the priority. They need to make that law work, not work their competition rules around it or competition needs around it for the riders. During a press briefing, FEI Secretary General Sabrina Ibanez was asked whether progress around equestrian social license to operate is being made fast enough. In-house, there are probably weekly meetings on this action plan, on the action plan actions we need to establish. So I don't think we can go faster than that. In addition, we need to do our regular work. So I think we're doing the best we can with what we have, she said. This is the go gently on them, they're volunteers argument. That's the Horse and Hound report. I just wanted to highlight comments in a letter, which my first argument when this Charlotte Dujardin scandal surfaced was exactly this. Talking it through, I have never understood why you can't talk to your horse in a dressage test, even unaffiliated. I am 65 and competing at a low level in 2023, intro to preliminary and now novice, possibly moving up to elementary. Well done, Kay Willis of Newbury, Berkshire, at 65 years of age. My horse is very responsive to the voice, and when we school, I talk to him all the time, telling him what we are doing, saying he's a good boy. When I go into a dressage test, I'm suddenly not allowed to talk. Why is that the case? Yes, I'd like an answer to that too. We both then are more tense and never relax as well as we have done in the warm-up and prior training. Surely responding to the voice has to be better than spurs, not that I wear those, or a whip. So yes, thank you to the Horse and Hound for actually printing that. And again, dressage would be more inclusive if, as we do when we're training a horse, we use the voice, or you'd expect riders to use the voice. Why are they then not allowed to use the voice in competition? So I hope that comes through for the 2025 FEI get-together. And we also have some comment, Richard Davison, and referring to Charlotte Fry, Lottie Fry. The judges rewarded her with strong technical marks, particularly for harmony between horse and rider. Given the heightened scrutiny riders like Lottie are under, this was especially good news. I'll be interested to see what findings emerge from our Haltenschwert, the German-based welfare group invited by the organising committee to observe the warm-up arenas and monitor FEI stewarding protocols. And he says he attended the FEI Sports Forum. The agenda reflected the high volume of representations the FEI has received following last year's high-profile equine abuse cases. Top of the list was the issue of judging, the implication that either judges are failing to recognise and penalise signs of discomfort, or that there is a lack of consensus on how to score those observations. In my view, it's the latter, and it has been perpetuated due to the FEI's delay in implementing a coherent and agile code of points. So some criticism there for the FEI. In response, the FEI has established several advisory and strategic working groups, yes, including a strategic action planning group specifically for dressage, including Kira Kirkland, Danish vet Lisa Berg, and our own Gareth Hughes, who wasn't there, we believe. While the group seems to be in the early stages of its discussions, blue sky thinking is a positive start. A start? They've been on this since before the last Olympics. The challenge, of course, will be to convert those ideas into clear and enforceable rules. Indeed, it was repeatedly stated that those rules, which are to be designed to enhance the well-being of our horses, must either be evidence or knowledge-based. Therefore, I was particularly dismayed at the lack of rationality in the suggestion that the reintroduction of collective marks could help resolve matters concerning judging and assessment. That's an interesting viewpoint. And I wonder what his view is on why it won't work. The evidence is clear. Studies show that collective marks in technical tests often enable bias and result in vague, inconsistent scores. Far from helping, they risk undermining the credibility of judges and the sport itself. Okay, so what I think he means is that that would give more power to the judges to influence the outcomes. And whenever anyone is asked a question and a subjective response is required, you're never going to be assured of the accuracy. That's why science very often has objective measures, that which is measurable and quantifiable. Thankfully, I was reassured by Kira and Lisa, who pointed to the robust scientific evidence already at the FEI's disposal. Indeed, it just takes someone to read and interpret it. This was a reminder that good intentions must still be backed by solid data. Yes. TAC equipment and protocols, several submissions around TAC. These have also reached parliamentary level in various national governments. Voters hold the power, and while hard evidence matters, we cannot underestimate the impact of public perception. Yes, let's not forget that the FEI doesn't rule all horse riding. They merely exist to represent their members. Their jurisdiction is over horses presented for competition and competing, and of the training of horses carried out by their members. But ultimately, the world is watching. These issues are getting on the national government agendas, and they will rule accordingly. So it won't be in the interest of the FEI members, i.e. the grassroots riders, to keep pushing these issues around tables of committees and working groups. He says we must be prepared to view our sport through the eyes of those less invested than ourselves. Oh yes. In this, the FEI Equine Welfare Advisory Group could play a crucial role. Comprising eminent researchers, academics, and independent experts, this group provides a much-needed external perspective. Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, the FEI has their agenda. They know what works and what doesn't work. So I think their agenda will be based on their well-being, perhaps more so than that of the horse, which they frequently advocate should be put first. Many of this group already have access to the corridors of parliamentary power. We will need to be much more comfortable with compromise if we want others to endorse our cause. I have a sense that matters are now moving at a pace, and the FEI may need to accelerate the timeline it has set for working group developing the action plan for dressage. Oh yes, he's on the case too. That's all for now. As always, thank you very much for engaging in, participating, commenting on, liking, subscribing, and all that you do. Know that you are making a difference. Let's keep our foot on the accelerator.